Welcome to the Outdoor Biz Podcast, your home for inspiring conversations with outdoor insiders. Each week, author, speaker, adventurer, and outdoor industry veteran Rick Saez talks in depth with iconic brand founders, sales and marketing pros, product designers, and industry rising stars. Listen in when Rick's guests offer actionable advice to land your ideal industry gig and grow your outdoor career. Catch us again when the conversation shifts to the hottest outdoor products, destinations, and the latest industry insights. And now, here's Rick.
Welcome to episode 308 of the Outdoor Biz Podcast. Please enjoy this replay of one of the more popular episodes from 2021 featuring adventure photographer Lucas Gilman. And may the spirit of the holidays be with you throughout the new year. We'll be back at it in 2022, kicking it off with episode 310 featuring Libsyn's Rob Walsh, a surprise guest on episode 311, and Hiker's Brew founder Zach Pekka on episode 312. And be sure to make time to get outside. Lucas Gilman is one of the leading adventure photographers and filmmakers in the industry for the last 20 years. His powerful and incisive images run in top publications and advertisements worldwide, and his love of adventure and addiction to color creates his distinct style of photography and filmmaking. I've had the good fortune to work and learn from him on a couple of different occasions. Welcome to the show, Lucas.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's good to catch up with you. We were just talking before we hit the mic button how long it's been. It's been like since 2014 or 15, something like that. Too long.
Yeah, it's funny. I hate to date myself, but I was talking to somebody the other day, and I said, "Well, when we developed film," and they said, "What? You developed film?" And I said, "Yeah." Then we scanned it, and they go, "Wow, you must be really old."
That's right. Yeah, I remember those days. The little roll it up in the little canister. That was pretty fun.
Yeah. The wing lynch, and you're like, okay, how long do we have to go if we need to push it, and all that kind of fun stuff. So
that's right. Yeah. So you're living in Arroyo Grande now, near the ocean. That's pretty cool. I think you guys were in Petaluma last time we talked, weren't you? Did you live in Petaluma?
Yeah. So I lived in Jackson Hole in Denver before California. So I was just passing through Petaluma, and I was, grew up in Colorado, but kind of a mountain kid, but wanted to kind of see the ocean side of it too. So currently, me and the fam are in Central California, which I like to say is California without the California problems, no traffic. It's kind of like, but don't tell anybody. It's pretty glorious up here. Nice weather year round, and
that's awesome.
Quiet.
Yeah, that's the way Bishop is. Bishop is really quiet, as you know. Do you get over here much, the east side?
I do. It's been, we actually did a trip this summer, and we were going to stay a little longer, but it was with the pandemic. It was just kind of crazy. I was thinking of Bishop being quiet, and everybody else had the same idea, I guess. So we just kept trucking, heading east, and went out to Colorado, where I'm originally from. So.
There you go. Yeah. This summer was crazy. Yeah, it's quieted down, and once everybody went back to school, or back to school and back to work is a thing anymore, but back to whatever they're doing, it's quiet now. Plus, we have winter, so that keeps people away. But no snow. We have winter, but no snow. So,
wow.
Yeah, pretty nuts. The mountain is hurting. So, how were you introduced to the outdoors and adventure? Was that as a kid, mountain kid?
Yeah, so I grew up in Western Colorado. My dad was a fly fishing guide when I was growing up, and
nice.
Had a love of travel, and I grew up skiing and everything else. And I actually went to college to be a writer. I went to University of Colorado at Boulder, and I really wanted to be a writer until I figured out pretty quickly that was way too much work. And so I took a intro to photojournalism class, and I was always a kid that really enjoyed taking the family photos, but I never thought of it as possibly being a career path.
Mm-hmm.
My first camera was a Nikon FM2 with a 50 millimeter lens that was my mom's camera. And in that first photojournalism class, my professor, Kevin Maloney, was a New York Times stringer. So he was, working for the New York Times, and his photography was just absolutely inspirational. And he had a Nikon F5 at that point. And I remember picking up that camera and being like, wow, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Like the glowing green kind of LCD inside, and you could see the f-stop and everything. And so it was like, I was like, I'm kind of hooked. So, I kind of just kept, kind of working on the craft. And one of our assignments in that first photojournalism class was to spot news. And, spot news was anything that was, accidents, fires, anything that doesn't have a, kind of a press conference type thing. So after a long night of studying, I was heading home and I happened upon this tragic accident walking home after in the library. And it was a double fatality, and it was just like, so, and this is back in the day as a film, so it was, you had to, so I took these photos. It was a horrible accident, and, went in and processed them in the CU film room there, and scanned them. And my professor was like, wow, these are actually pretty good. You should submit them to the Denver Post, which is the largest newspaper in Colorado at that time. And they ended up running it because it was kind of a big story at the time, because it was a drunk driving accident. There was a big push for, to have some new laws in place. So I remember getting a check for like $150, and it was the first time I was like, wow, this could be.
That sealed the deal right there. Yeah.
Yeah. So then I got an internship, and I actually started working part-time for the Denver Post, kind of throughout college, which was great. So, it was trial by fire, as far as I got all the assignments that nobody else wanted. It'd be like, high school football out on the plains where it was so dark, literally they'd bring the cars around with the headlights. And
wow, good on you for taking those, though. I mean, that's pretty.
But it was amazing because I got paid mileage.
Yeah.
I got like whatever 40 cents a mile or whatever it was, and I got to drive all over the state and get to photograph what I thought was the coolest thing ever.
Right.
It was just something new every day. The staffers didn't want to go to a rodeo in like southeastern Colorado.
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah.
5 hours away. So I learned a lot, but it was, like I said, it was trial by fire. And I kind of, from there, it was like, I decided at some point, I wanted to produce quality over quantity. If I was going to shoot a portrait, I didn't want to do it at noon, which was when they always seem to schedule these things.
Yeah.
So I decided that I was going to kind of like, branch off on my own. And Rich Clarkson, who used to be the director of photography at National Geographic, was a mentor there in Denver, Colorado. And he said, well, you should take great guy. He said, you should take a job up in Jackson Hole at the Jackson Hole News and Guide and Jackson Hole Magazine. And I said, what? You're crazy. I'm at the Denver Post, and, I'm going to keep doing my freelance photography. And he said, I think you should really do it. So he said, at least go up and give it a chance. So I went up there and fell in love with Jackson Hole, and the newspaper and the magazine. I was the director of photography, and they said, well, you can kind of do what you want as long as you're producing great photography. So that's where it was kind of like a perfect storm. I was, an outdoor kid, grew up skiing, and the reason I got into photography, because I never wanted to be behind a desk. So kind of went out and just continued to work on my portfolio, throughout that whole time.
And you got to make it up as you wanted, though. That's pretty cool. They just turned it loose.
I mean, it was like, I want to do a story on people skiing Teton Pass and, backcountry skiing and building a snow cave or like horsebacking into the Wind River Range. It was kind of like, I got to like, be like, let me think of the coolest thing I could do this week or this month and get paid for it. It was, it wasn't something you're going to buy a house on, but it was a salary enough to continue to build the craft and to, kind of buff out the portfolio so that I could eventually, I was only at the magazine and the newspaper for a couple of years, but, build it out to the point where I felt like I could go out and fully be freelance and do, build my business in the kind of the outdoor adventure world, which that's is amazing. Kind of, what I'm known for.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. So how long were you in Jackson then?
So I was in Jackson for a little over 6 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you had a great, quite the portfolio of
adventure and all kinds of outdoor things. I mean, Jackson's so cool too because you get the horse activity, right? The horse, and that's a whole different animal. So that's pretty cool too. The horses and rodeos and cows and cattle and all that. Yeah.
Exactly. And there were polo teams in Jackson. I made friends with the manager of the polo club, and I'd go photograph polo, and I met all these people from Argentina that would be the pro players that came in.
Oh, wow.
And then, there's kayaking, and there's mountain biking, and there's backcountry skiing. And, it's a veritable, playground for, an outdoor adventure photographer. And obviously it was a lot quieter back in 2006 than it is now.
Right.
But it was a beautiful thing. But as my kind of client list grew, and my, I was doing a lot of work for a lot of sports type magazines and also commercial companies. And Jackson in the winter is a very difficult place to leave because the airport gets shut down for 3 or 4 days because of storms. And so I moved down to Denver because basically, I knew Colorado, loved Colorado, but the airport was great because I really wanted to take it to the next level and be able to travel more consistently and such.
So what was your first outdoor adventure commercial shoot other than for the magazine?
So it's one of those things where I was working for a lot of companies. I can't say that there's one in particular commercial shoot. I started working with Patagonia. I started working with K2 Skis. I started working with Atomic. I started working, with all of the kind of outdoor apparel and hard good manufacturers. And it was one of those things where, and then Cloudveil, who was an outdoor company based in Jackson.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say there was one outdoor specific that really springboarded me. It was one of those things where all of a sudden they'd be sending me, gear, and I'd be shooting collateral. And, it was kind of the way it worked back then was, you kind of like go out and just produce content all year. And then at the end of the year, you get, like I had a couple covers of the Patagonia catalog. And then funny side note, there was a shot I took of this guy in Granite Canyon in Jackson Hole, which is right out of bounds of the resort. And it's a shot of this guy, launching off a cliff, and he's in a shadow, and the whole valley's lit up, at sunset. And it's like this kind of like, nice silhouette, skiers silhouetted in the beautiful light. And I got a call from Patagonia, and they said, "Hey, Yvonne Chenard would like a print of this shot that was in the catalog." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, Yvonne Chenard, wants my photo." Cool. I'm like, I'm like on cloud 9. So I'm like, they're like,
I can imagine.
Yeah, they're like, how much? And I'm like, oh, I'll just do it. I'll just, just how big, right? So I sent it off, and I followed up, and I said, "Hey, did you get the print?" They're like, "Oh yeah, he loves it and whatever." And I said, "Oh, can I ask what he liked about it? Because he's seen the best, some of the best, arguably the best photography
from around the world.
And they're like, "Oh yeah, he likes it because you can see his cabin in the valley right there in the shot." And he thought that was kind of cool.
That's awesome.
I was like, oh, I went from being like the coolest guy ever to being like, oh, he just likes it because he can see his cabin in the shot. So.
Yeah, but still, he liked the artistic creativity of the shot with his cabin.
I keep trying to tell myself that. Yeah.
yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. So, do you have a shoot in your past that was particularly epic? Crazy weather, rough travel, cranky subjects. Any?
Oh well,
I'm sure we've all got crazy weather stories. I'm sure. Yeah, right. I was I was going through that list. I was thinking he's probably got a number of them.
Well, I think we want to start with the most difficult. Well, I wouldn't say difficult, but I would say that one of the crazier things that's ever happened to me was I was doing a job for Nikon to basically launch this little point and shoot waterproof, shockproof camera, and I shoot a lot of kayaking. And one of my buddies, Rob Ortiz, who
you do a lot of water.
Yeah, I do
right?
a lot of surfing,
kayaking.
Yeah. And so I called my buddy Rafa Ortiz, who's a Red Bull athlete, and said, "Hey, I've got this little, this project. You got anything going on?" He goes, "Well, we're going to Chiapas, to the Agua Azul." And I'm like, "Chiapas? Why does that like ring a bell?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's right, Zapatistas, Chiapas, And I'm like, he's like, "Oh, we'll be fine, like it's mellow and whatever." So we go down there, and it's this beautiful, this as like aquamarine water. Like it's straight. It looks like it's like Photoshop. Like the whole thing is just so beautiful. And there's these travertine waterfalls, and it's like we hike, miles into the jungle to these things, and they're dropping these off these waterfalls in their kayaks. And I'm with my my guide, who was a part of our crew, who's a local guy. And all of a sudden we get surrounded by these like Zapatistas, like 20 Zapatistas. Wow. And they've got these 4-foot long machetes that are like just razor sharp, and they all wear the balaclavas, and all you can see is their eyes, and they're like, they start screaming at me, and they're like, Estados Unidos, Estados Unidos. And I'm like, no, story to Canada. I'm not from Canada, but I'm from Canada. I'm not American. Yeah. Because they hate Americans, because in the 80s, the CIA tried to help the Mexican government basically eradicate them, because they're rebels and such. So, and they're like, they kept saying Estados Unidos. I'm like, no, I'm from Canada. And I didn't bring a passport or any ID or anything, because I knew if we ran into anybody,
smart, right,
it would be problematic. So they're like, they're like $10,000. We need $10,000. And they kept like drawing their finger into their throat, like showing me like, we're going to cut your throat. Like my guide is like totally white as a ghost, local guy. No. Like he's like, his eyes are just, bulging out. And, I'm like, so I had $500 in one pocket, $300 in another pocket, and $200 in another pocket. So I gave him like $500. I'm like, sorry, lo siento, like, and so they're like, no. And so I gave him the 300 and then whatever. So I had $1,000. I gave him $1,000, and I'm like, sorry, showed him my pockets are empty. Like, this is all I got. Yeah. And they like thought about it, and they tried to get a hold of the boss, but he wasn't like on the radio and whatever. And finally they're like, okay, go. And like, we literally like sprinted the whatever, like 3 or 4 miles up the river to get away. And, the funny,
that'd be scary.
The irony of the thing is I gave them American dollars, so I don't know if they're not up on their currency, but like they weren't Canadian dollars.
Yeah. Well, they probably didn't put 2 and 2 together. Yeah.
But so that was
interesting.
That was pretty harrowing. Another
man, that would be really scary.
Another crazy shoot. Rock Ortiz again, the Red Bull guy, was one of the largest waterfalls ever run, 198 feet. Palouse Falls in
I think I remember that. Yeah.
So that was crazy. I mean, I literally thought my buddy was maybe not going to come back from this.
That was a great shot, though.
Yeah. I mean, you see, it was one of those things where Rafa disappeared right before it happened, and we're like, where did Rafa go? And they're like, oh, he's taking a nap on the shore over there, waiting for the Cineplex helicopter to show up, because it was a Red Bull shoot, so we had a helicopter and all that kind of stuff, and it worked out, and it's I could regale you with war stories, but
well, it's funny how those things all do eventually work out. I mean, you get the shot, and so you said you originally went to school or were studying writing. Do you write up any of those stories? Have you written any of those stories up just for shits and giggles?
I do. Honestly, I actually kind of like try to like make sure that the magazines don't know that I'm a writer, because I always hate to. I want to focus on one thing as opposed to being kind of pulled in two directions. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But I think the writing has helped me, and I think what if anybody's aspiring to be a photographer, I feel like the biggest thing obviously is to have your craft and be able to produce stunning images, but also to be able to write a creative and concise pitch. And I think that's where that journalism background, being able to write, because, honestly, 80% of what I do is on the back end and the office end, coming up with concepts, coming up with creative ideas, coming up with angles of things that have been done before, trying to not necessarily reinvent the wheel, but, trying to go out and continually have enough, for lack of a better term, irons in the fire.
Yeah.
So that then you have enough.
Be different.
Yeah, exactly. So that you then have enough things going on that then you can have a kind of a sustainable income.
So tell us how you go about developing that story or anatomy of a shoot. You have a recipe or an idea in mind. You must do a ton of research to figure out what you can do that's A, different, and B, like you say, going to
Yeah,
appeal to somebody.
It's been, it kind of is changed over time. And there's not one necessarily recipe, but working with athletes and developing relationships is kind of paramount in the photography, as well as we also do. And I've kind of transitioned into directing, and I run the other half of my business, I would say, or actually more than the still photography, is we do motion as well. So we shoot video and that kind of thing, which has kind of been because, there's always a video aspect to this these days. But
well, and these, I guess, for the last, what would you say, 10 years, you've had to do both, right? I mean, you can't just, in order to be a well-rounded photographer, it's maybe not had to do both, but it's smart of you to do both video and still.
Yeah, and I think that really became apparent with I used to do quite a bit of work for Land Rover, and we had this new prototype car, and we were up near Telluride, Colorado, and we were there to shoot the stills, and there was a video crew there to do the video, and we just literally were battling for this car. It was like we both needed the same thing, but what looks good as a still doesn't necessarily translate to video, and vice versa. So we were literally battling. And so one thing that we've tried to do, at least in the last 10 years or so, is essentially show up with one crew. And I think that kind of comes about with it. It was also more productive on the client side to have one crew that could do both the video and the stills, which was great for their bottom line, because all of a sudden you don't have two separate crews, one video crew, so there's that crossover there to save money. But also the quality of the output, the cohesiveness of the project, stylistically looks a lot similar. So that was something that I kind of started running with to continue to kind of grow the business, because in these times there's always going to be a video aspect to all of these shoots. So why not embrace it instead of kind of go,
makes total sense.
Swim upstream against it.
Yeah, do both. Yeah, deliver it all in one-stop shop. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Where do you get your inspiration?
Well, pretty much everywhere.
you got to be on the lookout for all kinds of opportunities.
Coming from the outdoor adventure world, that's kind of was the bread and butter. But I really kind of try to find inspiration in kind of everywhere. I mean, and I think it goes back to when I was in college and was really into photography. I would go to the library and I would just pull out photo books, and that would be anything from Ansel Adams to Avedon to Peter Lindbergh to anything from fashion to food to kind of like fine art, and just going out and trying to find that visual stimulation, and to kind of like just use that as a springboard to go out and produce things, to use techniques to make new and interesting pictures. I mean, trying to set yourself apart in today's world with the cameras are so good. The technology is so good. Whatever you're using is your capture medium.
That new iPhone, that a 12X Pro.
Yeah,
Holy
I mean
cow.
it's crazy how the technology. So it's one of those things where I remember when I transitioned from film to digital, and there was a lot of curmudgeons, for lack of a better term, that were like, I'll never go to digital. It'll never be as good as film. And I think just trying to embrace all those things, but using them to find that creativity, because there's with the technology, there's certain things that you can do that you wouldn't be able to do. I remember once for instance, now we've got these smaller mirrorless cameras like the Nikon Z7 II or whatever. Like all of a sudden they're small enough and light enough to where mounting them on a long boom arm that's small and lightweight, you can all of a sudden produce angles that you never could before. That looks like it's in a drone, which, that's a whole nother world and a whole nother license and things like that. But, using the technology, figuring out, all right, well, these things all have a place and a purpose, right? So how do we use this technology to our advantage, instead of looking at it as though it's like, oh, all these people are just, cutting into my bread and butter and my bottom line. Like, let's embrace this technology and go out and produce content, which we wouldn't have been able to do before. And, kind of pairing that with the creative side, which is, starting with an idea, kind of fleshing out that idea, and then figuring out how you're going to accomplish that idea and what the tools are that you need to accomplish that. Whether that's on the motion side, whether that's that you need a camera that can shoot 120 frames a second at 4K, so you've got super slow motion, or even 220 frames per second to get super slow motion. Like, what is it that we're trying to accomplish? And looking at from that holistic kind of eye in the sky view, and not getting,
makes a lot of sense.
Not getting too bogged down in the details or the minutia, being like, this is what I want to produce. This is the idea. Is it, an epic surf film, or is it a guy dropping 100-foot waterfall? What's the end result that we want out of this? What are the assets that we want to produce, and what are the tools we need to do that? So by kind of thinking, and who are the people? Because I'm only one person. I like to say that I work in a collective. I collect friends and associates which are really good at what they do. And by doing that, I feel like it makes me stronger. Photographers have a very me attitude where it's, I produce the photo, I do this, I'm looking at this as in a bigger picture sense, like, how can call it a tribe, make me stronger? In a sense. Bring those creatives together who oftentimes and many times have much better ideas than I do.
Right. Yeah. Unique perspectives. Exactly.
So all of a sudden, it's all of a sudden you've got you've almost got your mini agency, right? For a project. Right. You've got your other creatives, and if you have a thick enough skin to do that and not be too prideful. And I remember somebody young in my career that said, if you want to be a photographer, you can't, wear your heart on your shirt sleeve, because you're, I think it was Chris Rainier. I did a workshop with him. Chris Rainier, famous guy, done a lot of books. Did a workshop with him in Aspen when I was very young. And he said, if you get 2 out of 10 proposals greenlit, you have done an amazing job. And I said, if you're only batting 20%, you're doing great. So, be okay with no, but also that no can also be, instead of it being soul crushing, can also be inspiring, because maybe you just need to go back and revamp that, because maybe you were almost there, but that idea just wasn't quite there yet. So, having that sense of what works and what doesn't, there's no way to really teach that. It's just, you learn it over years of kind of knowing. There's certain stories of, for instance, there's a picture I took and for a Red Bull thing, and it was this picture of this guy, Steve Fisher, in Upper Washington on this thing called the Black River. This picture never went anywhere. And it was one of those things where it was it hadn't gotten much fanfare, and it all of a sudden one day it just started selling, like everywhere, international publications, all over the world. It's like one of those things, like they say, like going viral. It's like you take these pictures in your life where you're like, this picture is good, this picture is solid, why doesn't it go anywhere? Another one of those is the first ascent of the Rio Al Seseca. There's this 132-foot waterfall, which we didn't end up running, but it got run later on. But we had to rappel around this thing, this huge rappel. So it's a kayak rappelling down and along next to this huge gorge and this beautiful waterfall. And so it's a picture of a guy rappelling with a kayak next to this waterfall, and it's just
dramatic.
Right. And this thing never went anywhere. It didn't, I did the story for Men's Journal. It didn't run in Men's Journal. And it just sat there. And then, I got a call from National Geographic, and they were doing their 100 years of photography edition, basically. And they were looking for these kind of earthscapes. And it ended up being one of the leading opening shots for the magazine. Huh. So it was like, it was kind of ironic, that, and I guess the moral of the story is that you've got to have kind of faith in what you see as good photography, because it may not be seen right away. Like, and people may not agree with you, or they may just not see it yet, but, to keep, I guess, pounding the pavement and having faith that what you're doing is good photography.
Well, you keep honing your craft. And I love the agency concept that you mentioned, because by putting together a different agency or a unique agency, depending on what the shoot needs, you can customize it specifically for that. And that allows you to be more creative on site, right?
Oh, totally. I mean, do we need a drone operator? Do we need underwater or a water specialist? Do we need somebody that's really good at mounting cameras in certain positions? Do we need, all these different things? Or do we need somebody who's a lighting guru? And I've done a lot of lighting over my career. And that's one of the things that I think kind of set me apart. And, way back in the day was, lighting arenas and lighting things that you wouldn't normally think that were lit. But, finding somebody that's all they do, and that's, what they want to do well, that's, that you can't put a value on that, because like when they bring their ideas and their experience to the table too, which is you double your fun, right? Or triple your fun. Exactly. And, we all walk away, hopefully, fulfilled as far as like producing something that we wanted to produce. But, hate to say it, but the bottom line is this is a business. I still need to put food on the table. If it's not a charity, I wish it could be, but
I hear you. I can relate to that.
I haven't gotten my grant for lifetime status just to go do fun projects. So I'm still working on that.
Yeah, we got to figure out where that application is. We're going to take a little break and give some love to our sponsor. Hey, do you love to read but don't always have the time to sit down with a good book? I'm the same, and sometimes I just feel like having someone else tell the story. Well, if you use Audible, then you know. If not, you're missing out. It's like having a library in your phone, and I use it a lot. Audible helps the miles fly by when I'm on the road, as I'm enjoying great books I discover or are recommended by friends. Get your free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/theoutdoorbizpodcast. There are over 180,000 titles to choose from. Go to audibletrial.com/theoutdoorbizpodcast and start your free 30-day trial with Audible today. And now back to the show. Are you shooting with any of the new phones? I have a buddy of mine who's just gaga over the phone and says it's going to kill DSLRs. And I said, well, it's not going to kill them, but it's a pretty remarkable tool.
I think the phone, like anything, has its place. I've got the new iPhone Pro 12. I think it's 12 Pro Max.
12X or something.
Yeah, the new big phone, and it's the pictures are spectacular. It does a great thing. It's one of those things where I think there's a tool for every job. If I'm out and I'm just snapping photos of my wife and my son, and we're on vacation or whatever, absolutely amazing job. If I want to go do something and completely kind of control every aspect of it, I think that is where I would pick up like a Nikon Z7, because I'm also you're talking about 47 megapixels versus 12 basically. It's just, it gives you more, there's the technology is not there to be able to capture enough light on that small of a sensor on a phone to be able to it's comparable, but I'm also kind of a control freak. So you're able to get exactly what you envisioned where, not like I said, the phone is absolutely amazing. And for everyday stuff, absolutely spectacular. But
there's some people making some amazing stuff, which they do with it, whatever tool they have, right? It's not the tool, it's the person.
Yeah,
so,
it's people.
What's a combination?
People always ask me, "What's the best camera?" And I say, it starts for me with ergonomics, but honestly, it's the camera you carry with you, because it's the one that you will have with you when you want to take that photo. It's not the one that you leave in the car in the trunk. It's the one that you actually have with you. So, that is one of those things where. That's a personal choice. I'm obviously a Nikon ambassador and love the glass and the system and what I've, used for years, but I'm not going to tell somebody that they shouldn't go use something else, because honestly, that comes down to what you're comfortable with and what you'll actually, go out and use. And I think that's important, that people, take stock in the, in what they're going to use. I kind of liken it to the $3,000 tripod, right? It's like the guy goes and gets his first camera and he buys this like bulky, heavy tripod that they never use. So then they go back and they buy another one, and it's a little bit smaller, but still bulky. And they always leave it in the trunk. And then all of a sudden buy like the third or fourth one, right? They finally buy the one they should have initially, which is a little, actually quite a bit more expensive. But if you'd added it up, those other two, they would be, right there. So it's like the same thing. You just need to make sure that you're going to take stock. And I know there's a lot of gearheads out there. Photography has the ability to kind of inspire people to want.
Yeah.
But
that's a new technology. It's like fly fishing too. It's all, the new rods, and then it's just a lot of these little, a lot of these professions that you guys are in as professionals that also have a hobby side. It's about the gear for the hobbyist, right? And they want the latest and greatest and most technically advanced, whether they can use it or not. That's what they want. They think it makes them better. And in some cases it does, but it's like you say, it's the one, the item you have with you and the one that you know how to use and are going to use.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
Most comfortable. Your comment about being most comfortable with it, that's what you're going to use. So, yeah.
The technology you can take full advantage of, in a sense, to be able to know how to really make that work for you.
Right. So how has COVID impacted your business? Obviously, you're probably not traveling as much.
So, I haven't been on an airplane. I typically, for the last, I'd say 15 years, I'd be at least 100,000+ miles a year air travel. I think I traveled in 2020 1,900 miles.
Wow, yeah.
It was like
I didn't travel at all.
It was like I had a couple jobs in like January, early February, and then it was kind of like I just wasn't willing to take the risk.
I'm with you. Yeah.
It was one of those things. And it's also, there's all, and it's also about reputation. You've worked my whole career to go out and represent companies, produce projects. And, you're only as good as the last project you produce for any client. And, to go out and either not be able to, be able to complete something because of even if it's out of my control, I never want to be the person that they remember as like, oh yeah, they just never delivered on that. So it just wasn't really worth the risk from a health standpoint, but also from there's also the perception of oh, we're all locked down, but these photographers are out there gallivanting around the world. That's not right either. So So I started basically I pivoted basically. I still wanted to do photography and still be creative and produce video projects. And my kind of second love outside of photography is cooking. Like we have a outdoor wood pizza oven, and
cool.
I really enjoy. Part of the reason we moved to California is to be big stirs close by. Obviously, you're up in Bishop, Eastern Sierras, man, that's beautiful. So camping and like cooking over a live fire basically is something that I just absolutely love. So I kind of took stock again, kind of this eye in the sky, like, well, we can't really travel. What can I do? Well, I can travel regionally safely. We've got a camper van. What can we do? What are we allowed to do? And so I started reaching out to companies like, for instance, there's a new company out of Texas that has this really amazing aluminum barbecue grill, this charcoal grill called, it's a Nomad. And it's like, it looks like if James Bond had a grill, this would be the one he would have. Like CNC aluminum, absolutely beautiful. It's a smoker, it's a grill. So I said, hey, it looks like you guys could use some help with social media. You guys need some content, started reaching out to companies like that and basically developing relationships. And again, it all goes back to those relationships to where, and I've done food photography just for fun in the past. So again, I needed a little bit of a portfolio to show them what I could do, but, start developing those relationships and, Finex cast iron pans, Japanese knife makers, just here and there, just finding the products, a curated list of people that I'd want to work with.
Smart.
And, started producing content, whether it was home
Cool.
or just, a few miles from home. And, that's kind of how we've kind of, I guess you could say, weathered the storm. I'd be lying if I said 2020 was a good year. Was it catastrophic? No, but it definitely wasn't. I wouldn't say a banger year in a sense, but I think everybody took that. But what we did gain was a new skill set. Continuing to cook and kind of buff out the food photography stuff, but also diversifying the portfolio.
Yeah, new body of work. Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, that's super smart. And you got to eat your wares when you're done.
Exactly.
How bad is that? Do you have a favorite thing you like to cook?
Well, it really depends. I've done everything from kind of high-end sushi preparations to Japanese Wagyu on a hot stone to, we really kind of, if I could pick one style of cooking, it would be cooking over, wood or oak out in nature. So I'd say
open flame,
whether that's in a, Dutch oven or over cast iron or over a grill, just kind of going back to the way we used to cook, kind of low tech, and just, enjoying the sights and the smells and the sounds of, producing regionally sustainable, produce and,
that's very cool.
And meats and things and just kind of doing it that way.
Yeah, that's super cool. That's good. Good on you for that pivot too. That was pretty smart. Yeah. Do you have any suggestions or advice for folks wanting to get into photography?
Well, I would say you only have one chance to make a first impression. So, I would say if you're wanting to figure out who your client is first. Whether if that's National Geographic, figure out what kind of portfolio you'd need to build to impress National Geographic. And I'd say that you need to, crawl before you walk and walk before you run. That, if until you're ready to show them your portfolio, don't do it. You only have that first chance. So until you're producing the caliber of work that is represented in the pages of that magazine or publication, or even if it's an advertising client, figure out the things that you can do that you are comfortable with. Because, for instance, if your whole life you wanted to shoot the Super Bowl, right? And then you get a call from, Sports Illustrated or ESPN or whatever it may be to go shoot the Super Bowl. Are you ready to do it? So be careful what you ask for.
Yeah, the phone might ring.
Exactly. So, and be ready to do
that's
that.
Good advice. Yeah.
But I'd say just take your time and develop the craft. I think as a photographer, you're kind of like a handyman. The more things you can do well, the better photographer you are. Can you shoot in miserable conditions? Can you shoot when the light isn't great? Can you still produce? And I think that's the difference. And there's a lot of amazing photographers out there. Millions out there. But the difference between a true professional and somebody who's an amateur is the true professional can produce something in any condition.
Yeah, they deliver all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the amateur may not be able to because they're just not used to that. And people say, well, and I say, well, and they go, well, how do you get there? And I say, well, I've made more mistakes than you have. And they go, and I said, well, through those mistakes, I notice things earlier. They're going to become a problem, or know things that are potential problems. And on any shoot, it's not if there's a problem, it's how big is that problem and how do you fix it?
When
it's not if, it's when, right? Like how are we going to get this thing done? So I think that, to take that into account, and to hopefully, continue to, like I said, just enjoy it because, and initially find something you love, whether you love macro flower photography or food photography or shooting portraits, whatever it is, find something that you're just passionate about, because at the end of the day, if you become successful, it is a job. it's called a
Yeah,
job for a
everything
reason.
becomes a job at some point. Right.
It's
Exactly. Well, yeah, everything
not
becomes
called
a job.
vacation. It's called a job. And,
You're
eventually
still working, right?
there's going to be
Yeah.
long hours, and there will be sacrifices. So make sure that you're passionate about what you're doing, because yes, it's totally rewarding. And would I do anything else? No. But,
Right.
you need to be ready for that.
Right. That's good advice. Yeah. Let's shift gears a little bit. If you were able to hang a huge banner at the front of one of the trade shows, be it an outdoor show or a photo show, what would it say?
I would say chance favors the prepared mind. The old Louis Pasteur quote.
That's good.
And I think that just, and I think it goes to kind of where the way I approach not only everyday life, but I guess my job and my work. I do a lot of research, and I feel like the more you put into something, the better the better results you're going to get.
Yeah. Well, it ties back into what we were talking earlier about, advice, right? If you go out there and have used your camera in whatever tool it is, your camera, your surfboard, your podcast mic, whatever it is, if you've used it in enough situations, you're going to be prepared.
Exactly.
And then you add research on top of that, and it's all the better. Yeah, I like it. That's cool. Do you have any daily routines you use to keep your sanity? Exercise, meditate.
Living in California, it seems like we've been in lockdown for a long time. But we try to, we do day trips. We walk the dog. We do all the things that we can safely do. We can go. We like to take the camper van and go up near San Simeon, which is near Hearst Castle. And, cool. Take a picnic, grill there, hang out, and just spend the day on the beach,
Perfect.
Social distancing, let the dog run, just be out in nature. Once things, open up a little bit, hope to do another, kind of road trip throughout California to kind of, and this, the camper van is just a great way to do that, because you can kind of be self-sufficient. You don't need, you can pack enough groceries for a week and all that kind of stuff. And, figuring out that thing for us, it's been, trying to just do these day trips and, kind of look, and just appreciate what you have, so we've so far been healthy and, continue to do mostly what we want to do as far as, being creative. And my wife has been great because she helps kind of with the food styling and doing that kind of thing. So it's been, cool. There's a silver lining, I guess you could say. And I think that if the one thing I could, I know we've all, I read this thing that said, we're not all in the same boat. We're in the same storm, and not all of us we are all affected differently. So I can't assume or say how anybody else has been affected, but I would just say, try to figure out whatever the silver linings are, or what are the things that possibly could be positive out of it. Because if we dwell on the negatives, it's hard to move forward, because, there has to be something. It's human nature, right? We have to have something to work towards. And what is that?
Yeah, we've always gone through things. You look back in history the fact that humans are still on the planet and have evolved as we've evolved, we've gone through so many different things. You just have to put your head down and persevere and grind it out. It'll come out the other side. We will.
Yeah, even if it's small victories, right? It's
right.
Yeah. Such as being able to do a day trip or a little mini road trip, or even just go to a movie, whatever it may be that happens in the next months, 6 months, year. We have to just continue to focus on those things that and do the best I think we can for our fellow human to hopefully get through this time as quickly as possible, and remember that we have more that is similar than the differences that we seem to have these days.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Do you have any favorite books or books you give as gifts? Are you a big reader?
So, one of my favorite books, I love dogs. We have she's only 9 months old. She's a Weimaraner, Loki. Tim Flock, his book Dogs. He's a British photographer, and he does these super high speed sync pictures of dogs and all kinds of animals. He's an amazing guy. I met him in London, I think maybe 8 years ago or something, but always loved his books. Like just absolutely spectacular, like medium format photography. He actually uses 2 cameras that are synced with multiple heads and all. It's crazy, but like the detail of every water droplet, every hair on these dogs, like doing Tim Flock, amazing stuff.
Cool.
Chris Renier's books are always, he did a tattoo book, which is, spectacular. Ansel Adams, National Parks, one of my favorites. Also like, Annie Leibovitz, her kind of, her books, Mark Sellinger, Physiognomy is a great book where he does all the kind of like, portraits of kind of the stars and celebrities and such. So, I'd say that my photo book, thirst is definitely thirsty. Tom Mangelson books are always great. I know Tom Mangelson for a lot of years. He's at Jackson Hole and some of the best wildlife photography out there. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So
how about a favorite piece of outdoor gear under $100?
I would say a multi-tool would be the one thing I would recommend everybody have.
That comes up a lot.
I'd say, there's a couple of different Leathermans. The Skeleton, it's called a Skeleton, I think, is the one that I typically go with because it has basically bits that you can add to it. The bits are, Allen heads and such, so that you can. Yeah,
I have one of those. Yep.
So that would be the number one thing I think that would be, if I could spend $100 between that and a headlamp, those two things would be the things that always should be in every photographer's bag.
That's right. Everybody's bag.
Exactly.
I think,
if you're to ask me photo specific here, I'd say a 10-stop ND filter would be the thing that I would recommend everybody have as far as a camera accessory. It just allows you to do super long exposures in the middle of the day to make the the ocean go milky and have that kind of ethereal feel and waterfalls and that kind of thing.
That's a good one.
So those would be, I think, a couple of things.
That's good. Well, we'll link to those in the show notes. Yeah. As we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to say or ask of our listeners? No, I mean, it's been great chatting with you, and it's awesome to have caught up after all these years. And it's been good. And I just say, I hope everybody, we try to keep everything in perspective and remember that we only have one planet. Let's all kind of work together to hopefully keep it as best we can. Get out the other side. I love it. Yeah. And where can people find you? It's lucasgilman.com? Yeah, lucasgilman.com. Or if you want to find me on Instagram, it's just at Lucas Gilman. That's LUCASGILMAN. Cool. We'll link that in the show notes too. Well, yeah, it's been great to catch up after all this time. It's maybe we'll see each other one of these days on the east side, or I'll get over to the coast. It'd be fun to catch up and shoot together or have a meal or go for a walk, something, anything. Totally. Yeah, cool. Well, thanks, Lucas. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Outdoor Biz Podcast. Be sure to visit our website, theoutdoorbizpodcast.com, where you'll find show notes with links to everything we talked about and more. Subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts so you'll never miss an episode. And while you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes. Or spread the word and tell a friend about the show. That would really help us out too. Be sure to tune in every week. And thanks again for listening to the Outdoor Biz Podcast with Rick Saez.